Hello and welcome to Browse here on Kafeero.tv. I'm your host Angie, and today we have a fantastic guest by the name of Alan Muhumuza, who's from Kiira Motors. If you haven't heard about it, he's about to explain what this is going to be all about. If you've heard about electric cars, then don't move away from your seat. He is also the marketing and sales manager as well as the vice president, and he is going to tell us more about electric cars in Uganda. Alan, welcome.
Thank you, Angie.
Yeah. So, Kiira Motors, can you tell us more about it? I don't want people to get it confused with Kia. This is Kiira Motors, right? So
Yes.
Can you tell us more about Kiira Motors?
Kiira Motors Corporation is a presidential initiative for automotive manufacturing in Uganda.
Okay.
And we are, in a nutshell, in the business of making cars right here in Uganda.
Okay, so I understand you built the first electric vehicle in Africa, which is the Kiira EV, and that was 2011. And then you also built Africa's first hybrid vehicle, which is the Kiira EV Smart, that was in 2014. And then Africa's first solar-powered bus, 2016.
Yeah.
So you've achieved quite a lot in terms of being the first in Africa. But talking about electric cars, I was watching The Economist yesterday, and they say 2018 is actually the year where the electric car is being embraced. Would you say that is also going to be the same for Uganda? Because it still seems quite far away. Is it something that we are ready to accept?
Yes, I think looking at the global scale, it is true that 2018 is going to be a very interesting year for electric mobility. We are seeing so many startups, especially in the Western countries.
Yes.
So many startups in that space. But looking at Africa and Uganda in particular, it's possible for us to start seeing some of these electric vehicles on the road in 2018.
Okay.
In Africa, it's actually already happening. If you go to like Morocco, Algeria, South Africa, you'll find electric vehicles already on the road.
Okay.
But in Uganda, 2018, because we as Kiira Motors, we are saying we want to start production of our vehicles, especially the bus, in 2018.
Okay.
And we are open to actually, if a client came to us and said, I want an electric bus, we will actually deliver an electric bus.
Okay.
If they want a diesel bus, we will deliver a diesel bus. In terms of embracing this technology for Uganda, the reality is it might take a while, but I will not be surprised if someone brings an electric vehicle in Uganda in this year.
Okay, that will be interesting. And then when we talk about electric cars, they're taking over the world. What is the advantage of having an electric car over, let's say, a fuel-powered car? Why are they becoming so popular?
I think now is the time where we are seeing awareness in terms of sustainable solutions globally. And mobility is not an exception. We have seen so many companies world over, even the traditional car makers like Suzuki or Toyota or Mercedes beginning to go electric. Yes. Now, in terms of the advantages that has, of course, if it is to the manufacturer, of course they're making their money.
Yes.
But for the consumer, because if it's an electric vehicle, you're not dealing with things to do with engines, you're not dealing with, so that the maintenance of the engine is not there anymore.
Wow, that's cheap.
Yeah, it's actually, in terms of operational expenditure of the vehicle, of an electric vehicle, if you compare it to a fuel vehicle, you're spending way less maintaining an electric vehicle than maintaining an internal combustion engine vehicle.
Right.
But also when it comes to the fuel, the cost of fuel, because we're seeing the cost of fuel skyrocketing over the years. Yes. Of course, that's also to do with the scarcity, because the more we mine, the more we extract this oil from the ground, the levels keep going down, and they don't just replenish themselves overnight.
Yep, that's true.
But there's abundance of sources of electric energy all over. There is wind, there is solar, there are so many hydro, and all these are sustainable sources. So the cost of electricity continues to actually go down. Okay. So even when it comes to fuel, the consumer will be spending less to run his vehicle.
Speaking of oil, Does that mean with the emergence of electric cars, there's going to be, should we call it, less requirement for oil? So basically, Uganda has just recently discovered oil. But we also understand that the more electric cars take over, the more there'll be less need for oil. So, and if you realize that some countries are powerful because, well, they have oil. So do you think that then with the emergence of electric cars, there's going to be a power shift? If you look at countries like Nigeria, Arab countries, which, you know, they strive on or thrive on oil. But with the emergence, like I said, of these electric cars, what do you think the oil game is? Like Uganda, we were planning to make a lot of money on oil, but yeah, so that kind of makes us think twice. Should we look into...
are we doing the right thing?
Yes, should we now look into getting energy sources apart from fuel? I mean, oil, should we look at something else? What's your take on that?
Well, it is true that in terms of byproducts of crude oil, petroleum, diesel constitute about 80%.
Yes.
And the rest really go into plastics and fertilizers and all the other after products. And it's also true that we are seeing a shift in terms of new vehicles.
Yes.
But that's the key word, new vehicles.
Yes.
There are vehicles that are already in the market right now. In 2016, globally, there was a sale of about 750,000 electric vehicles.
Wow.
But in comparison, there are about over 90 million
fuel cars.
Yes.
Yeah.
So all those 90 million will still be they'll still be in the market even after 10 years from now. Because when you look at Uganda, for example, on average, we import about 40,000 vehicles per year. And of those 40,000, about 85% of the vehicles that are on the road currently are used vehicles.
Oh.
Yes, with an average age of about 16 years.
Wow.
So when you see, it's true that we're going to see a shift, but the demand for oil might not go down because all these vehicles that have already been manufactured will still be on the market, and they'll still be demanding for oil, even as the oil deposits continue to go down. So the oil price is actually going to keep going up, and the demand will stay there, but it will be more expensive over time to actually have a fuel vehicle.
Okay. So electric cars, I understand they use lithium batteries. Can you go a bit into that? I guess that's the difference. Like you talked about the engine. And I was watching something on YouTube, and basically they said, you know, you have all these batteries lined up at the bottom of the vehicle.
Yes.
And if you notice, we talked about something called lithium.
Yes.
Maybe you could shed more light about that and explain to us, you know, lithium, cobalt. We understand that cobalt is used for the lithium batteries, and most of it is found in Congo. And now you're talking about like oil and minerals always being used and can be replaced. Now, if cobalt is the most used, and Congo has about what, three quarters or something like that, or 2/3 of the cobalt needed to make these is it sustainable that one country should supply the rest of the world with this mineral?
Yeah, I think the Congo is in business, you could say. Uganda also is endowed with some of that resource, because we have about 5.5 million tons of cobalt.
Oh boy, okay, we're doing well.
Yeah, we are not badly off either. But right now, because as you're dealing with mobility, if you look at an internal combustion engine vehicle, you have your fuel in a tank, and then you burn that fuel to convert it into energy, and then which propels the vehicle forward. Now, for an electric vehicle, the same way you'd have solar, maybe, for example, in your house, and you have batteries to store the energy. You need that energy stored somewhere, so that when you need it to drive the vehicle, you can just call upon it. So that's why we have those batteries in those vehicles. And currently, the most popular battery is the lithium-ion battery, which is even in, that iPad right there. All these electronic devices, they use lithium-ion batteries. And the minerals that are used in those is lithium, cobalt, and graphite.
Okay.
And just like, you know, in Africa, we are blessed to have a wealth of natural resources. And I think now is the opportunity to leverage those resources. The same way in the Congo, you know, they have all that amount of cobalt. It's an opportunity for them to actually now start mass production of batteries, not export the cobalt out. So those are opportunities that are already being generated by the mere existence of this technology. But in terms of if the Congo were to run out of its cobalt, I'm sure by that time, as technology keeps advancing, we'll have other alternative sources of energy or storage that can be utilized and that could even be more efficient.
It's interesting. I've never heard actually that Uganda has cobalt, so I guess we are really a rich nation and we need to take advantage of that. Has the government had any, has the government given Kiira Motors any support? Are they involved? What's their involvement, if any? Especially the buses. I mean, especially the buses.
Yes.
Are they excited? Are they? What would you have anything to say?
Oh yes. Kiira Motors is actually a government-owned company. Okay. So we are fully owned by government, and government has supported us right from the time when we were still at that stage. You know, Kiira Motors started more of as a co-curricular activity at Makerere University about 2007, when a few students and their lecturers were invited to participate in a global consortium under MIT to build an electric vehicle, a 5-seater electric vehicle targeting the Indian market. So Makerere University was actually the only African university that participated in that consortium. Brilliant. And that vehicle was completed in 2008. It was launched and was showcased in Italy. So from that experience, the team came back and like, we can actually do something. These things are not rocket science. What can be done there, we can also do. So they embarked on making Africa's first electric vehicle, which brought out the birth of the Kiira EV. And at that time, the president was very excited about it. And we managed to get some funding through the Presidential Initiative for Science and Technology. And that has brought us thus far, to the point where now we are a company fully incorporated in automotive manufacturing and fully owned by government. So government is 100% behind this and excited to make sure that this actually comes to fruition.
Oh, brilliant. Speaking of governments, I understand some of the European governments are actually making it, should I say, regulations that in some of their cities, as close as 2025, they won't be allowing fuel-powered cars, or should I say fuel cars, to be sold or to come into their cities. And that kind of poses a question for me. Actually, two questions. Number one, would the government of Uganda ever consider, obviously you can't speak on their behalf, but I wonder if our government would pass such a law, because there are still laws that you can't get a car in here that's a certain age old. I know in Nairobi it takes effect, but that also makes me wonder if all these international countries are putting a blockage to buying fuel cars and promoting electric cars, doesn't that mean then, should we call it dumping of fuel cars in countries like Uganda, where, well, our regulations are not so. So I guess I'm asking, do you see a situation where Europe is going to stop all these fuel cars and then, you know, they'll become extremely cheap and devalued, and then somehow they'll end up here because something maybe that was at $3,000 is now at $200 because they can't sell them there? What do you think?
Globally, when you look at the way countries have responded to this move, it's quite interesting because about 14 countries globally have set actual targets for the sale of electric vehicles. And when you do the math, by 2020, the amount of vehicles that will be required to be consumed by those 14 countries will be 13 million electric vehicles.
Wow.
So that shows the opportunity for even companies like us. If people are wondering, is it the right time for us?
Yes,
it is the right time because 2020 is not far. And 13 million vehicles are not few either. Because currently, if last year, it's 2016, only 750,000 vehicles were sold, electric vehicles. And by 2020, they need 13 million. Wow. That gap, it will take more than the companies that are currently existing
so
to actually
everyone
meet that
should
demand.
Jump into the market.
Yes, we should jump into this market. But now, looking at Uganda, you know, we are actually party to the Paris Agreement and also the Kyoto Protocol, where there are some targets that need to be met in terms of fuel efficiency, in terms of emissions standards and all that. So it might not be in 2018 where Uganda will start setting targets because we haven't even started consuming these vehicles as of yet. But I know and I am convinced that as this technology becomes more consumed within the region, those targets are going to be set. Because it's the only way you can also spur that economic development in that area and also make companies like Kiira Motors that are doing some value addition in-house be more competitive.
Okay. Now, if I bought an electric car today, how easy is it for me to maintain it? Like if I break down as I'm going home, can I call my mechanic? Yeah, you know, can I call my mechanic and just he's been fixing my fuel car? Can I then just give him an electric car? Or are people who are like mechanics today, do they need to go back to school and completely learn different skills?
You know, in the automotive industry, we have groups of people that we call influencers. These are people who influence the customers' buying factors or their needs for their products. And one of the key people are actually people who repair vehicles, who work in service centers. Because there are people who actually, people go to and ask, what car should I buy? And now they will tell you the car that they can repair. That's the car they will recommend to you. They will not tell you go and buy a 2017 Mercedes-Benz because they know the electronics in there, they might not be able to handle them. Only says Kiira Motors will be able to, given that really that is their business. So, and even us as Kiira Motors, we know, because the time we also did a feasibility study and went around and talked to all these influencers, the banking industry, because the banking industry is actually very key because vehicles are actually not so cheap. And people might have a role to play in ensuring that those vehicles people can be able to pay for them maybe over a period of time. So in the time we did that study, we actually realized that these influencers who are in service centers, they don't have the skill to actually repair the new technology vehicles. Now, we as Kiira Motors, one of our mandates is to actually equip the service centers such that they are the ones that you can easily go to when you not always come to Kiira Motors, for example. So we train them and ensure that they have the right equipment, the right tools, the right skills to actually deliver as required. So right now, if you bought an electric vehicle and you broke down on the road, of course, Kiira Motors, we can be able to sort you out. But in terms of these other Juaka, these are the people who are down in Katwe, or they might find some challenges because the technology is really new. But I think that's now a gap and an area in which we as Kiira Motors, as an original equipment manufacturer, will step in to actually see how we can ensure that we are competitive locally.
I think as Kiira Motors, then I suppose you should have a training center.
Oh yes, we definitely will have.
If it's sending someone to school and to study, like we said, even the world is going digital. It's like sending someone to go and study secretary or hoping to be someone's secretary when someone can send an email off their desk. Then I think the final question or something I'd like to talk about. Recently, 2016, China purchased quite a lot of electric cars, and everyone, whenever you mention China, it's like those guys at the top. I mean, they took the electric cars very seriously, I guess, before the rest of the world really caught up. Why do you think China was very interested in buying so many electric cars? What's the goal there?
Actually, China is currently the global leader in the automotive industry. Even in terms of manufacturing, because in 2016 still, I think they had about 30% of the vehicles consumed in that year were from China, and they were the leader at that time. So in terms of technology, China currently is pushing, is aggressive in being the leader, not just in the automotive industry, but in many other fields. So It's not a surprise that there was because they consumed 45% of the 750,000 electric vehicles.
Wow.
And right after them was Europe,
Yes.
followed by the US.
Okay.
Now, it's not a surprise because they're not few people either,
Yeah.
because they're the world's largest
Yes,
population. So in terms of the market, they have the world's largest market in one area.
Yeah.
So they are able to work out the economies of scale and
Yeah.
bring down their costs.
Right.
They utilize their natural resources, and their government is really aggressive about ensuring that they are competitive, because even the targets they have set for the electric vehicle manufacturing are even more ambitious than any other country. So I think it's the reason as to why they were able to consume them is because they have already embraced that technology, and for them really it is the future, and they have accepted it, and they are working towards being the global leaders in that area.
Wow.
So I think as Africa, and even Uganda specifically, there are some lessons we can learn from there.
I think so.
You know, because China didn't start from up there.
Yeah.
They started down and built their economy. I think
And
even
one
as
day we
Uganda,
woke
we
up
can
and
be
they were
able
at the
to.
top of
Yeah, they were at the
everything.
top. No, they are threatening everyone right now. Yeah.
Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, that was Alan Muhumuza from Kiira Motors Corporation. Thank you so much for visiting us and shedding light on electric cars and the future of cars, and most importantly to me is pointing out that even when you're studying maybe to be a car mechanic, once again times have changed, and I guess new education is needed, and we hope that you will be able to promote that education to the young people, because I know many people look at vocational skills. And let's see where we end up, and I hope we'll hear more about cobalt being mined, and that we can take advantage of that. But thank you so much
been a
for
pleasure.
coming. Thank you to our viewers. Thank you for joining us here on Browse on Kafeero.tv. Once again, I was your host, Angie. Thank you once again.